We've all played Monopoly, some by the former rules and some by our own. But no matter what we try, at the end of the day, most Monopoly games leave us feeling empty and hopeless. It does so many things right, yet it's missing something important, something special, something that we all have in common, something that unifies us. I suppose we'll never know what that missing thing is until now.
Introducing Taxopoly, the monumental achievement in the appropriation of intellectual property. With an emphasis on taxation, Taxopoly implements the often ignored yet critical element of becoming a monopolist. Paying taxes, realizing you'd rather not, purchasing regulators, using them to avoid paying taxes, and subsequently against your political enemies. Grab your go money, pay your property taxes, and let's dive into the deep end of Taxopoly.
In the United States, the people are governed by two separate yet equally important groups: the public officials, who pass the laws, and the lobbyists, who write them. These are their stories.
Tired of letting the dice dictate your future? Welcome to the new age. All properties will be sent to auction the second a player lands on them. I can feel your disapproval already. Your heart screams radical and heretic. But in the deepest confines of your mind, only one word remains: revolutionary. And that's correct.
Now, that doesn't mean that the player who lands on a given property doesn't have agency. They can send the property to a public or a private auction. What's a public versus private auction, you ask? Great question. A public auction is a good old-fashioned circle bid, where everybody tries to push you to spend as much money as possible on the last orange or pink or whatever you're bidding on. It could be a get-out-of-jail-free card. Or a private auction. I want you to imagine a smoky boardroom, something discreet, low-key. Only the highest handwritten offer will win.
I know you. You've always dreamed of buying up all of the houses, putting them on brown and light blue, and refusing to sell. But there's just too many houses in the game to pull it off. Good news. In Taxopoly, price controls have limited the amount of available housing to only 24 houses and 12 hotels. Live out your dream. I believe in you. Really.
Let's talk about pass and go. It's typically the only enjoyable part of Monopoly. It's net positive. Straight cash flow, easy going, chill. Well, you can forget about that because now pass and go includes paying your property taxes. Tell me, do you really own something if it can be taken away from you for missing a single payment? Probably not. But instead of worrying about that, you'll be too busy adding up $10 for each property you own unless you've been gifted enough to have an entire Monopoly color set. If that were the case and you did own the set, you'd receive a $10 subsidy for each property in that completed set every single time you pass go. Pressure like this is sure to motivate even the most conservative players into making a deal.
We've all made mistakes, which is why we've reimagined the federal penitentiary system, now designed to evoke feelings of dread and hopelessness. Thinking about spending your time safe and tucked away in AdSag, collecting rent like the Golden Age?
Sorry. You've got a first-class ticket to Gem Pop, and you're going to have to pay the shot caller $20 a turn if you want to avoid putting in work, getting your hands dirty like the rest of us. Now, you can always post bail, walk out door, $100. Or if you're a fan of throwing dice, throw some doubles, walk right out. Even the warden respects that kind of skill.
Hey, maybe you've hit a point where it's no longer economically viable to do time. It's no big deal. Bribe your arresting officer $200 and he'll look the other way while you slip right on over to the Ecuadorian embassy, formerly free parking, and enjoy your freedom from extradition.
Miss a simpler time when you could still collect rent in the big house? Between you and me, as long as you own any federal agency, aka railroads, they can hook you up with rent.
Hey, and while we're talking about it, we should let you know that if another player is visiting you while you're doing what it takes to survive in the Fed pen, they can collect the rent for you if you both negotiate a split. If not, you'll remember when you get free.
Let's talk about taxation and trade and get emotional about business. Now, have you ever purchased something without having a tax imposed on it? Don't answer without your attorney present. Just kidding. It's between us. Anyway, if you trade anything, you have to pay a $50 transfer tax. I don't write the rules, I just read them.
When playing the OG Monopoly, you surely always believed that you belonged in jail because you were guilty of a crime, and that crime was building without a permit. No need to turn yourself in. From now on, we'll do things right. Before building improvements, you first need to purchase a building permit, which is very reasonably priced at the cost of a single house.
On the note of paying your fair share, why don't we start making those property owners who are so rich they forget to even charge rent pay their fair share too? You know what? We'll do it live. New rule. You forget to charge someone rent, you got to pay a gross negligence tax. Make it $25. That's better. Good. What's next?
Starting tax.
Yeah, that seems right.
There is a statistical advantage to going first that should be solved with a quick tax, and while we're at it, we'll just move that money right into the last player's pocket in the form of a subsidy.
Can you feel the balance? There must be two sinks running simultaneously in diametrically opposed quadrants of the room because the feng shui in here is evened out. Remember earlier when I asked you if you truly own something that could be taken away for missing a single payment? Behold, a pale horse.
Put your hands together for eminent domain. Pull the eminent domain card from either deck and say goodbye to the family farm. Fortunately for you, but fortunately for the community, it's been determined that your property would be the prime location for a state-run halfway house, so your ownership is now null and void, as though it never existed in the first place. In place of your property will now be a single house with all rent going to the state for the rest of the game.
Of course, you'll be compensated for losing your property. Whatever the predetermined listing value is, you'll get it back along with all the money you've spent on improvements. I hope you didn't overpay at the auction to build the set. And before you even start, yes, you'll be able to keep your houses or hotels and the remaining properties on the set. It's really not a big deal. It's for the greater good.
Last on our list of important changes is the new banking system. Now you can invest your money that's collecting dust in AAA rated mortgage-backed securities. When you pass go, you'll get your money back with a 10% return. Don't worry about losing the money. The guys at the rating agency who gave it that AAA rating are solid. They wouldn't lie, and even if they did, I couldn't define subprime if my life depended on it.
Now, if you're the gambling type, you could borrow some money from the bank. Up to 50% of your net worth, as a matter of fact. But be careful. You're going to have to pay it back with 50% interest next time you pass go.
All properties have been renamed and reimagined. Hey, yo, are you ready?
Let's do it.
Dun, 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 dun! Ruby Ridge,
Waco,
Foothill Boulevard,
6221 Osage Avenue,
Lorraine Hotel,
Flint,
East Palestine,
Love Canal,
Attica,
Guantanamo Bay,
Abu Ghraib,
Afghanistan,
Iraq,
Vietnam,
Dealey Plaza,
Ambassador Hotel,
Cape Canaveral,
Cold Spring Harbor Lab,
Incarnation Children's Center,
Tuskegee,
Nagasaki,
Hiroshima,
Ariel Rios Federal Building,
J. Edgar Hoover Building,
Langley.
Fort Meade. Now, let's talk about these different agencies. They've replaced railroads. Before, you remember the railroads, they were boring. They were $25 if you landed on one, and a whole other bunch of stuff that you've probably forgotten, unless you're looking at the cards. Well, now owning one allows you to collect rent while you're doing time inside the federal penitentiary. Meanwhile, owning two is going to allow you to stay in the federal penitentiary for free. You're not going to have to pay off the shot caller because Fed has your back. Three is going to let you eliminate the property tax. If you own all of them, you get to skip out on a pretty cool thing. You don't need a monopoly if you want to build a house or a hotel. You own just one colored property and feel free to build on it as long as you own all of the federal agencies.
Replacing utilities, we now have regulators, HUD and EPA. Owning a regulator allows you to use it as a wild card to complete a 3-property color set. If the player lands on them, standard dice rolling rules will apply.
Also up on the buying block would be the Federal Reserve. That's right, it's replacing luxury tax. Now, if you land on the Federal Reserve, it'll go to a private auction automatically. And if you own it, you have the ability to double your go money. But as a consequence, you're going to give every player $50 from the bank. In other words, you'll be inflating the currency. So you want to be careful whose hands the Federal Reserve falls into. Now, if it's landed on by another player, they can receive $100 from the bank as long as the owner of the Fed approves. If the owner lands on it, they receive $100.
Next up is 1111 Constitution Ave. If a player lands on it, they will be audited for 10% of their net worth. If the owner lands on it, they may select a player to audit.
Next on the list is the aforementioned Ecuadorian embassy, replacing free parking. When you land on it, you cannot build, you're not going to be collecting any rent, but you can't be sent to jail, even if someone has a card that sends you to jail. It's a non-extradition zone, so you are good to hang out.
Replacing chance cards, we now have policy cards.
Policy cards work just like chance cards. They're going to take you to different places, give you get-out-of-jail-free cards, send you to jail, and a myriad of other fun events, such as making money or losing money. Now, of course, we also have the eminent domain card, which is present in both decks. Both decks? I'm glad you asked. We also have leverage cards. Leverage cards are going to have an emphasis on things you can use against other players. Maybe a card that lets you send another player to jail at any time. You slip and fall, play this card to skip out on paying rent and sue the property owner you land on for $200. Is a great example. Many more, 16 in both decks.
In conclusion, here we have our Taxopoly board. We've spent a lot of time on it. I hope you like it as much as we do. I'm Katie.
And I'm Spencer.
And we're
Taxopoly.